Welcome back to our webinar on self-awareness, human development, and conscious evolution. Today, we add another dimension in our quest. We are looking at the work of Abraham Maslow to see how the self navigates through the outer world to become whole. Maslow called his concept of human development self-actualization. In it, he took a positive view of human nature, looking for the good in humankind rather than the bad. He was more interested in the development of the possible human than focusing on the neurotic human. His work doesn't contradict Jung's internal work, it complements it, in that it relates principally to the challenges we face in our external world. Maslow, who died in 1970 at the age of 62, was drawn to the field of human potential. For him, human potential was non-deterministic. It assumes that we are not a victim of fate. He believes that we can transcend our circumstance and emerge as a greater human being. One of Maslow's main contributions to the field was his hierarchy of human needs, a multi-level pyramid that features the basic human needs in order of complexity. He saw the lower levels as deficiency needs that had to be met before one could move to higher growth needs, or to a level of contemplation on the content and meaning of life. Let's look at Maslow's hierarchy and discover how a linear pattern of growth can result in the fulfillment of higher needs and thus provide meaning in life. In this diagram of the hierarchy of needs, each of the 6 stages of growth is denoted by different colored layers. The entry level of the pyramid represents our physiological needs. Our need for such things as food, sleep, and air. We need to eat, breathe, and have shelter to survive. The second tier represents our need for security and protection, including those that emerge from social and political instability. We need a safety net in which we are free from harm, are employed, have a family unit, have medicines, have property. The third represents our need for belonging and love. Those include both selfish taking ways, which is a deficiency, and unselfish love that is based on growth, which is not a deficiency. We need to enjoy friendships, family, and sexual intimacy. The fourth represents our need for self-esteem and honesty. These are positive feelings derived from admiration. We become confident based on our achievements and thereby develop respect for ourselves and others. The fifth level represents our being needs concerning creative self-growth engendered by fulfillment of potential and meaning in life. We are creative, moral, spontaneous. We are problem solvers. We compassionately accept all people, and we can evaluate the validity of information that we encounter. The purple area at the top represents transcendence. Maslow researched the higher levels of human attainment through his work with people who had had what he called peak experiences. He saw these experiences as transcendent moments of pure joy and elation, which are possible for all, but are seldom fully experienced, internalized, and transformed into human endeavor. We have all experienced the awe and wonder of a sunset or a waterfall. We have shared special moments of mutual love with others, and we have engaged in selfless service to others. These experiences give us a basis for understanding peak experiences. Take this kind of experience to a higher order, bring it back into your life, and sustain it over time, and you can get the feeling of what Maslow is talking about when he describes peak experiences. So what does the path of human potential look like? How does the self grow and expand over time in relationship to Maslow's concept of self-actualization. How do we reach our potential? I will change our visual orientation somewhat so that we can look at the relationship between self-actualization and transcendence. For our purposes, I'll rotate Maslow's chart so that the concept of growth is represented horizontally rather than vertically. Then I will add an axis or vector to represent growth over our lifetime. Note how the pyramid can be deconstructed along the axis of time to represent the physiological needs, safety needs, belonging needs, esteem needs, and actualization needs. Since transformation can be experienced at all stages, it can be configured as a separate axis, representing the growth of human transformation across the period of one's life. Transformation begins at birth, from an egocentric or self-centered state of being. As one becomes more conscious or whole, one becomes less attached to the needs of the ego. In this process, one becomes less egocentric, that is, less selfish, and more identified with the whole, more selfless. Through life experiences over time, one has the potential to attain an egoless or selfless state wherein one develops limitless compassion for the totality of the human family. Now we have two vectors which represents two dimensions of growth, that of the self in the world, self-actualization, and that of the self transcending to its highest spiritual awareness, self-transcendence. In this hypothetical or idealized path of the self is transformed over time as it both actualizes and transcends. But what if one only achieves his or her physiological, safety, belonging, and being needs and doesn't develop holistically? That person inevitably reaches a point in life where there is emptiness and a lack of purpose. This can result in a crisis of meaning. Our history and literature abound with characters who have failed at life, or whose limited growth has inflicted great turmoil or worse on the lives of others. These characters, entrapped in their own self-centeredness or narcissism, might never know anything but conflict. Self-gratification is no longer adequate when one comes to grips with their mortality, however, and they want more. We call this state of being a crisis of meaning. What is the meaning of life is the existential question that we all must face sometime in our life. And what if one only attends to his or her need to feel elevated beyond the limitations of self? We may have had the experience of attending a psycho-spiritual workshop in which we had an epiphany, only to have returned to the real world and feel deflated, empty, separate, or let down. This phenomenon can also occur when a person ingests a plant medicine or psychotropic drug without the proper set and setting. People who have had elevated experiences might have felt at one with God one day and just a mere mortal the next. We call this a crisis of identity. Who am I? Is the existential question when one experiences a dualistic reality. What is needed is a long-term commitment to growth and development if we are to reach our potential. Systematic growth is a lifelong commitment to self-actualization and to transcendence. There is little evidence of a final earthly state of complete realization, although a small percentage of people in the human family have reached a state of being in which their words and deeds served as an impeccable model of growth, transcendence, grace, and humanity. We call the optimum state of being the transpersonal self. means self beyond personality, or non-dualistic reality, self beyond the matter and spiritual dualities, or unitive consciousness, self in a state of oneness with the cosmos. There are other terms that refer to this state. I'm sure that we can all identify people in the modern era who have been observed to have these qualities and who made a significant mark on the world. I would offer Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, and Ramana Maharshi as an initial group to consider. Who would you add to this list, and why? Thank you very much for joining me in this quest.